We kind of lose ourselves sometimes when we think we have to be this person or do this so this person understands or be there for other people before ourselves. And
Yeah.
I definitely didn't know all this in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, but I just like to share all the different ways that I've found my own resilience
Yeah.
from unfortunate circumstances. It's just a reminder of like, you're a really good person. And a lot of times we just forget the things that matter the most. And
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, the return on generosity, the
Yep.
way that you show up for all these people, for your family, it has to come from yourself, and loving and understanding and being the best version of yourself then bleeds out to everyone benefiting.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow when we give.
Welcome to R.O.G, Return on Generosity, a podcast celebrating generosity at work. Not financial giving, giving valuable time, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration.
Welcome back to R.O.G, Return on Generosity podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Cassidy. And today we're joined with a powerhouse in the fitness world, Sydney Cummings. Howdy show. Sydney is an NASM, which stands for National Academy of Sports Medicine, certified personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist. She's the founder of Royal Change, a fitness media company that has delivered over 305 million free workouts globally through her YouTube channel. Her journey is one of resilience and purpose. From being a national championship qualifying high jumper at West Virginia University to overcoming personal tragedies, Sydney has transformed challenges into a mission that makes fitness accessible and empowering for all. In this episode, we're going to dive into how Sydney built a global community rooted in consistency, authenticity, and generosity. We'll explore how she leads with her heart, fosters a culture of support, and inspires others to pursue progress over perfection. What I appreciate most about you, Sydney, and I could go on and on about this, is your genuine and authentic desire to help others. You have helped me and my husband and my children. You help us in every aspect of our lives, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, obviously. And I'm just so grateful to have the chance to personally thank you. Welcome to R.O.G.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for saying that about you and your family. It's very true. I just feel like everyone deserves someone who they feel like genuinely cares about them. So I really appreciate it.
And it comes through like every day. I feel like you're talking to me.
Yeah.
And I know you hear that from everyone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do try to envision someone every day, post workout or in the squad that I'm talking to, and just being real, I think makes everything so much easier than trying to make a facade of, inauthenticity.
Was that your goal in the beginning where you're like, I'm just going to show up and be myself? I mean, we'll get more into your background in a second, but I'm just curious, like, was that intentional?
Initially, it was something that I had to learn a little bit more because, as a human, you start to look at what's out there already in the YouTube fitness world or the digital fitness world. At the time, it was very polished, very perfect, very pretty almost. Like I thought you either were a grungy female trainer or like a very pretty female trainer. And there was no, for me, influence of an in-between where I just felt like that person is a real person. They're an athlete, they're sweating, they're tripping over their water. And so initially I had to get over the idea that it had to be something very, very polished or very, very masculine. But slowly, the more I exposed myself and my humor, my laid back attitude, but, dedicated regimen for fitness, the more people kind of started to appreciate and accept that. And it just kind of gave me permission to be myself, and which helped me ultimately connect with people a lot better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it served dividends. I think that's an R.O.G example in and of itself. Sometimes we think we're supposed to be something else, but then when we just let ourselves be ourselves, then we actually attract more people that way.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. Where were you raised, your family?
I was raised in a small town right outside of Charleston, West Virginia called Sissonville. And it was a one-stoplight town. We all went to the same elementary, middle school, high school together. So super small town. I grew up with one brother, and he was younger than me, and we both played sports our entire lives. I went on to college to play sports. He was very into like the farming and motor vehicles and like things like that. So a very masculine brother, but like for me, it was all sports growing up. And
Mhm.
it was just a small town where no one really dreamt any bigger than like the small town. So that
Mhm.
was kind of when I went to college on a track and field scholarship. It was very eye opening to me. And growing up, having the same friends all your life, or the same, parents around you all your life, from your friends' parents to your parents, and then you get out into the real world and there's so much culture. There's so many different levels of athletes. There's so many people that are, I was kind of like a big fish in a little pond with sports. And so you get out of that and you're like humbled, oh my gosh, these people are great.
Yeah.
But growing up, I had a great childhood. I can't complain about anything. It was just super humble. It was just a small little, like, sort of country town outside of a small city. So, very lucky to have grown up in the way that I did. And moving on to college, it was definitely something where I felt probably the biggest shift in growth up
Mhm.
until that point in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what led you to decide that you wanted to go away to school and play sports?
I think for me, it wasn't necessarily a factor that I considered because we didn't necessarily have the money to go to college. Like my parents wouldn't have been able to fund that. So for me, it was a sports scholarship was pretty much the only way that I was going to keep going with my track and field career.
Mhm.
I got a combination of an athletic and an academic scholarship. So I knew that for most of my life, I'd wanted to go to West Virginia University. And that was, again, just a small town thing. Like we didn't have a pro sports team in West Virginia. So it was like the Mountaineers were everything. Looking back, hindsight's 2020. I also wish I would have explored bigger track and field specific colleges and had a ton of opportunities from participating in AAU track and field. But it was just kind of like I know I'm doing track somewhere after this. And where I chose was a little bit more of like a comfort stepping stone. Like I'm pretty close to home, but not too close to home.
Mhm.
So I'm proud of the decision to actually go, but I'm always talking to my nieces and nephews like just think a little bit bigger, think bigger than you know is possible,
Mm.
because you don't know what you don't know until someone like me can say, "Here's what I learned. Now take
Mhm.
this and kind of run with it."
Yes, total great advice. Who advised you back then? Like who were some of your mentors or role models, people who inspired you?
I had an AAU track and field coach. His name was Marshall Murray, and we had summer track basically in West Virginia. It was the Striders, but essentially AAU track and field where we travel around when I wasn't doing school track and field. And he was just super positive and encouraging and getting me in front of those different collegiate recruiters. And
Mhm.
that's sort of where all of my recruiting came from. It wasn't really, West Virginia track and field or like sending in my records to recruiters. It was people seeing me on the AAU circuit, and so
Mhm.
getting out into those sort of like domains of people that were bigger than me and better than me and challenging me to go bigger and not always win. He was like, you got to think bigger. You got to think, get in front of people, get better competition. And, from a personal and a sports sort of realm, he was definitely a big push alongside my parents.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. So here you go to college, you graduate and take us from there.
So I graduate college with a degree in child development and family studies. My track and field career obviously ended with track. It's kind of like you go to the Olympics or it's done. Like there's not
Yeah.
really an in between of, sponsored athletes doing all these meets. And the
Mhm.
Olympics is only every 4 years. So unless you're like Olympic caliber right out of college, you kind of have to just figure it out. So track and field ended. That was really tough because that had been the only point up until then that I hadn't been an athlete in my life,
Yeah.
where no one cared if I worked out or showed up for practice. And I had to kind of figure my identity out in that way. But I went back to school because I had a lot of trouble finding a job with a child development career or a child development degree, and went back to nursing school. This kind of swings back to the small town mindset of thinking, if you can't find a job, go with what you can have security in
Mhm.
and benefits, and you can get a job anywhere. So I went back to nursing school, finished a year of nursing school, and lost my job that I was using to put myself back through nursing school. And so my boyfriend at the time had moved to Charlotte. He was in finance and he was a CPA. I was like, well, I'll just go down there for the summer. And he worked out at a gym, talked to a trainer, was like, oh, yeah, if she was a track and field college athlete, we could definitely get her in here and like let her be a personal trainer for the summer. I was like, perfect. I don't have a job. I need money to put myself back through school. So let me just do that for the summer. And as you can probably guess, I didn't go back to nursing school. I've always had this deep rooted desire to help people, but kind of trying to figure out who I was with no track and field career anymore, having that step into my world and be, a part of people's mission from the other side. I was like, I think this is how I'm supposed to feel moving forward, and
Yeah.
not necessarily, banking on the safety of being a nurse, but instead going more for, I think this is how I personally, Sydney, want to feel each day with
Mm-hmm.
being involved in people's lives like this. And so it wasn't a lucrative move. It was definitely a passion filled move. But I told myself if I could have Dustin help me just live there for 1 year and try to make this thing work, I would put nursing school off. It would always be in the background as an
Mm-hmm.
option, but I didn't see myself moving forward as a nurse and being in a hospital 12 hours a day for the rest of my life. I felt like I would be sort of capped, with potential of helping people, kind of staying in guidelines versus fitness. I was able to be, physically helpful, but also mentally helpful for people. And moving forward, it
Yeah.
was a new client every day. So I fell in love with being a personal trainer here in Charlotte and never went back to nursing school.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. So you followed your heart. And for those who are listening who have had similar feelings like that, I mean, what could you talk about when you get that sense of peace? Because I think sometimes we wish it was written in the sky, like this is what you should do or turn here. But we don't have that, unfortunately. But we have something else. And if that, like you're touching on that now, and I bet you there's going to be a series of those as we go through your progression here. But could you just talk to us about like that instinct or that feeling?
I don't know where that came from, to be honest. I know it was a really risky move. I know if it wouldn't have been for Dustin, I wouldn't have been able to financially afford it. And he was in a very similar situation where he grew up super humble beginnings, had student loans. So I was basically just crashing his credit, and he was willing to help me. But there was something about, I've always kind of understood in a personal standpoint the way that I want to feel, and not necessarily been able to say like, oh, if you want to feel good, just do this. It makes all the sense in the world. But there was just something pulling on me to say this isn't it for you. And the scary part of that was everyone would have been like, this is a really dumb decision. Everyone was like that. I should rephrase that. Everyone told me like, why would you do that? First of all, you're
Yeah.
moving with a boyfriend, not married yet. A lot of judgment from that. You're moving to a new city. You don't know anyone in a client based industry. So that doesn't make any sense. You're not making any money when you're working. And there was no, here's what's going to happen in the next 6 months for me plan either. So I think one of the biggest things that I learned, and like you said, in so many different iterations, it's happened throughout my life, but
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest things that I've learned is to not necessarily do things that may make sense to everyone else or get the approval of everyone else, or things that have been done sequentially that you see everyone around you being done by. But there's something that kind of leads you forward to say, like, this feeling, maybe you can identify it, maybe you can't, is
Mm-hmm.
you being passionate and fulfilled, and knowing no matter how much work it takes, you're willing to put in that work. And it's not, you'll never work a day in your life if you find what you love. You'll work, but you'll like the work, you'll enjoy the work, you'll love the journey along the way. So my biggest piece of advice is to try things, be okay with failing at things, and ultimately be very okay with not being understood by others, but understanding yourself and knowing this is worth it for me.
Mm. Oh, I love that. And my son just started a surf instruction company in Wilmington, North Carolina. So he's your neighbor, just
That's sick.
east. Yeah.
Good for him.
And yeah, he just graduated from college. My daughter graduated from Clemson on Friday. He graduated from UNC Wilmington on Saturday. So it's been a big
What a
weekend for us.
weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, a heck of a week. And then Mother's Day, right? So, and happy
Oh,
Mother's Day to you
thank you. And you as
too.
well.
Yes, thank you. I can't wait to hear more about Ari and number two.
Yeah.
So at Wilmington, he's a finance and fintech major. So like logically, that would mean like office job and finance and all of that. And that is for some people, but for him, he's an outside person. He loves the ocean. He loves swimming
Yeah.
and surfing, and he just wants to help other people experience that. So I feel like when you have that passion and that drive that you're talking about, where you're like, I just want other people to feel this way,
Yeah.
like in your case. And so you then decided you moved to Charlotte. You're starting you're a personal trainer. Where did the royal change come in?
So I moved here in 2014, and within like a 3 to 4 year window, which probably very similar to your son's story. He'll be kind of exhausting all options. But like I said, it's work, but you kind of love the journey. You love the grind because you love the
Yeah.
outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up working at like 3 or 4 different gyms, going to people's houses, hosting these free boot camps, and just doing whatever. Because, like I said, I had no clients, I had no friends here, I had no connections with anyone here. And so I was working at a group fitness gym, 2 personal training jobs at commercial gyms, going to people's houses at like 5 a.m. and 9 p.m., and then hosting free boot camps on the weekend. And from that, I kind of started to grow a little bit more in the group fitness gym. So it sort of boiled down a little bit more to free boot camps, group fitness gym, where I could reach more people at one time. And then the group fitness gym shut down. So I then had to figure out, where am I going to take all these people? Luckily, I was able to train them in my apartment complex gym and continue with the free boot camps. But that transition from working at all different places to grow my client base to just training my own personal training clients was where Royal Change came in. Like I had to, CPA husband, I had to put a tax kind of name on where this income was coming from. And we wanted to have sort of a tribute to the Queen City, or Charlotte is known as the Queen City, which is where Royal came from. We kind of
Okay.
felt like we both moved here and could figure out who we were as people. And then change was just the sort of the underlying drive for us. Instead of it being like a Sydney Shred or like a, whatever, Booty Blaster or anything like that as a company name, it was more like making the changes to make you feel like royalty, so you can show up and go for a hike with friends and you're confident, and it's not just an aesthetic base for our mission.
Mm-hmm.
So change was kind of what we decided on, instead of Body Fit by Sydney or something like that. So
Yeah.
Charlotte Change, Royal Change.
Oh, amazing. And so you talked about free boot camps, and then your YouTube channel, you offer free workouts to people, and you have Sydney Squad, which I want to hear more about as well. But when you first started, how did the channel come to pass? How did you start the YouTube and the videos?
After we were doing personal training and Dustin was helping me with marketing from the photography back end point, he also helped me with the business side of things, of putting myself on these websites where people could find me. And after a while, my client base was kind of booked out, and it was such an interesting business curve of having clients and then getting a certain demand and then raising prices and getting more demand. So I learned so much from him. I hope that's not something I forget to mention, but from a marketing and business standpoint, I've learned so much from just a business guru, in my opinion. But after 2017, when I had been doing that personal training for about a year and a half, I actually lost my brother, and it was a tragic ATV accident. He had just had his daughter less than a year before that, gotten married. And so we went through the 2.5 week battle of like, maybe he'll make it, maybe he won't. He ultimately ended up not making it. But after that and through that journey, it was sort of like a wake up call for me personally, and Dustin as well, to ask ourselves, what sort of legacy are you leaving? And
Mm-hmm.
you can't just work hour for dollar forever if you want to grow, which it's fine if you're very happy and that's it, like that's what you want,
Mm-hmm.
was totally fine. But for us, we knew, again, back to that, like, this isn't full potential us. My brother kind of forced us to think about that a little bit deeper and say, like, how do you want to go forward? How do you grow this thing? How do you help more people ultimately? And it keeps coming back to that. But we decided to find a space, and actually wanted to hire more personal trainers to give them better jobs, and to have personal trainers actually get paid well, because we really don't get paid well in commercial gyms. So I wanted to have a little facility where I could have really elite personal trainers come in and have their clients and just make a good living doing what I knew that they loved. And I was like, Dustin, we should also build like a little white stage here and maybe I could film some social media content. He was like, okay, we could try that. And so we started building the stage and setting up a camera, which was like a $200 camera from Best Buy Black Friday sale. And we set up the camera and we realized, okay, we have to keep making this bigger and bigger to be able to actually work for us. And by the time we finished building this white stage, we didn't have any room for that personal training business that we thought we were going to. So
Oh, wow.
we just kind of ran with, okay, well, maybe let's start putting workouts on YouTube, like 5-minute abs or 10-minute cardio, body weight, whatever, just little teasers that people could add on to their gym workouts. And the more we put those out with rental lights, a $200 camera, like no idea what we were doing. I had no idea how to do my makeup. It was just very, very rough. And we still were both working 60 to 80 hours a week to be able to afford this studio and the camera and the lights. The more we put those workouts out, the longer people wanted them. Like, hey, can you actually do a full workout? Like, I don't want to go to the gym today. I'd like more than 5-minute abs. And the more we did that, we kind of grew into this actual training service where it was a full program instead of just putting out like random workouts. You guys pick what you want. People don't really know. That's where a personal trainer comes in. So it evolved into from 5-minute workouts to, full month-long programs.
And you were ahead of the curve, I think, with YouTube, right? Because that was, I think, before YouTube was what it is now, which is a household name and everybody knows what it is and watches it all the time. So is that true?
Yeah, someone compared it to like we were preparing a feast for the famine. Ultimately it was very beginner YouTube, YouTube in general, YouTube fitness second to that, and then when the pandemic hit, it was everyone has to figure out how to work from home. So we didn't know what we were doing in so many different ways, but we knew that we wanted to give back to the Dustin and Sydneys of the world, and we joke and call ourselves the trailer park kids. We both grew up with just like growing up in trailer parks, you don't have access to personal trainers or even gyms or, digital fitness definitely wasn't a thing at that point. So we just wanted to give back to people. And it rooted from there into like, okay, let's pepper these things in. And when we saw that people outside of the people that we knew were utilizing and accessing these workouts, it was just kind of like that addictive nature of like, okay, let's help more. Let's keep going. And had no idea that we would be so helpful in the pandemic. But yeah, YouTube's definitely changed a couple different ways in our, 7-8 years of being on the channel or on the platform. But it's definitely been the best way to help the most amount of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love your videos where there was clips of people from all around the world thanking you and telling you about their workouts, and they say, "Hi, my name is so and so from Portugal," and "Hi, I'm,"
Yeah.
that just makes my heart like burst. It
Oh,
must
me
make you
too.
feel
Makes me
so proud.
emotional every time.
Yeah, I mean, you're like that person and you don't think about like that's a human life that is changed because of something that you created. Like, oh, so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'd love to circle back to Zach, your brother, for a
Hmm.
minute.
Yeah.
A Marine,
Yes.
Semper Fi.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about Zach, because I know that his spirit is really like a guiding force and keeps you strong. And I love that. And it's such a beautiful way to keep his memory alive. So tell us a little bit more about him.
Yeah, he was hilarious. He was one of the most authentic people I've ever met. I will credit my authenticity to that. But he was 2 years younger than me, almost exactly to the day. So we had a September 1st and September 8th birthday. So always shared birthday parties growing up until we didn't. Like it wasn't cool anymore.
Yeah.
But we didn't look anything alike. We were so different. He was, like I said, a very country boy, had all these interests in hunting and fishing and outdoorsman kind of things. And I was very much into just sports and music. And we're just incredibly different, but your siblings. So that's an underlying bond that you never lose. There's no one closer to you in your world, has gone through the same things as you in your world as your sibling. So he got married in 2016, had a daughter and a stepson that he helped raise as well. And his accident was just him out with his friends. You know, he had a tragic ATV accident, but right before that, he was in the Marines, and I got to watch him graduate from boot camp, and he was just incredibly strong in his conviction to himself and also to strength in general physically, to his ties to his family. Like he was just such a solid man, and just watching him grow into who he was growing into was wild as a big sister. But you know, from the time that he had his accident to the 2 or 3 weeks he was in the hospital, I was actually asked to go to a gym where he was back in our hometown and tell my story about never giving up. And the gym was called CrossFit Never Give Up. And I was like, okay, I'll write a story about, you know, coming to Charlotte, being a personal trainer, and that would be my interview. And then I'd go there, get some pictures in their gym, and that would be it. Obviously, things drastically changed, and I went to the gym to get pictures. I was like, I think I'm probably going to switch this a little bit to my brother and what we perceived would be his long recovery. You know, he had a traumatic brain injury that he never recovered from, but I thought he would be long road to recovery. Like, we're going to really have to never give up. And the gym actually gave me a t-shirt to give to him for his recovery. And it was just never give up across the chest. And the next day he passed. And so I genuinely feel that that was his mission to Dustin and I, to be in that mindset of, this is going to be hard. Obviously, you're going to be heartbroken in so many ways throughout life. You're going to need this message too, because we were both from small towns, and I for sure didn't know what's next in my career, because we're kind of creating this thing as we go. So I felt like that was his message to us, to not give up. And so I hold that and try to portray that very deeply to other people in whatever way we all need it, just based on the message that I felt like Zach gave me. Don't give up. This is going to be hard. Don't give up. People are not going to understand. Don't give up, and be convicted in who you are, just like he was.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry for your loss. And
Thank
I
you.
really deeply admire how you've leveraged that. You've used, you've taken that pain and you're like, nope, I'm not going to give up. I'm
Yeah.
going to pursue. And, you were still in the midst of growth then, you
Very
weren't
much. Yeah.
at the stage you're at now. So that was really important that you internalized it the way that you did and let yourself grieve, I hope,
Yeah, I
and
think
put it
it,
to
it was a
use.
literal rebuilding process for us, 'cause he passed and then we kind of built that studio out. So it was very much a like, let's build the studio, let's rebuild our hearts from the heartbreak, let's,
Mhm.
rebuild our mindset around what
Yeah.
we truly think matters. I think that
Mhm.
was one of the personal things I took away was, what actually matters in life. None of this let me please everyone. None of this everyone has to understand what I'm doing. I'm trying to do something great and fulfill what I think is my purpose in life, and go about this in a way that serves others, which in turn serves me. And it's just, that's what truly matters, not
Mhm.
all the fluff.
Right. How do you stay focused on that with all of the demands on your time and all of the fame that you now have? I mean, how do you keep yourself grounded in what matters?
I think being a mom definitely helps you stay grounded. I mean, you know that for sure as well. But I've never necessarily caught on to the idea that I am like fame worthy or at this elevated vision of myself. I think I've been blessed with the opportunities to work really, really hard and help a lot of people. And I think the way in which we've worked is inspiring to people, but I've never wanted to be the famous person. I've just
Mhm.
wanted to help more people every day. How can I help more? How can I get in front of more eyes and more bodies? And there's definitely a switch that can happen, I think, when you find yourself reaching for fulfillment or identity from other people's validation. I think Dustin and myself working together, it's always tough where people are like, oh, you work with your spouse, that's toxic or that's dangerous. But I think with our backgrounds and our mission being so closely intertwined, and just us having reality checks with each other every day, it's never been anything where we felt like, oh, we are this next level of person. We're
Yeah.
just, how can we work harder, see progress in what we're doing, help more people, and make sure that the authenticity of who we are is the message. It's like, you can do this happy, healthy, strong lifestyle without fluff, without having an aesthetic goal, without, there's so many things that can come from notoriety that
Mm-hmm.
I've just never been extremely turned on to, just because I know that that would be inauthentic to me. So I think, going through losing my brother and the shooting, it's always been like, what really matters?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll never please everyone. You'll never, uh, you know, even if you have this moment of virality, it's not about the fame for us. It's just about helping more people and
Yeah.
helping people be good people in their mission.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you say that to us, and I'll include myself in, your community, because I am a part of your community, that you remind us to be a good person and you remind us to focus on what matters. And like each day, you give us that, I'm just so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you.
You give us like a reminder of like get back to the basics, do the
Yeah.
things that are important and be a good person.
Yeah, the things that make you
Yeah.
you. We kind of lose ourselves sometimes when we think we have to be this person or do this so this person understands or be there for other people before ourselves. And
Yeah.
I definitely didn't know all this in the
Mhm.
beginning, but I just like to share all the different ways that I've found my own resilience
Yeah.
from unfortunate circumstances. It's just a reminder of like, you're a really good person. And a lot of times we just forget the things that matter the most. And
Mhm.
gratitude, the return on generosity, the
Yep.
way that you show up for all these people, for your family, it has to come from yourself. And loving and understanding and being the best version of yourself then bleeds out to everyone benefiting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we can't be generous to others if we're not being generous to ourselves and having something to give, right? Energy or resourcefulness. You just mentioned the shooting, which we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talked about your resilience in the intro and we've been talking about it, but you've been through a lot of horrible situations that you have then leveraged to make you stronger. That was
Right.
one of them.
Hmm.
Would you mind telling the story of the shooting?
Yeah, it was right after we finished building out the studio that I was talking about. My brother passed in June of 2017. And so this was September of 2018. It was very freshly done. We were just kind of getting into our groove. And we were filming a workout in the evening, which had to kind of happen because, like I mentioned, we were both working
Full
60 to
time.
80 hours
Yeah.
to be able to afford the studio and then going home and editing videos and recording videos at that studio. So we were closing up around 9:30 p.m., which wasn't super uncommon for us at that point. And we were walking down to our car, and we saw four guys that were sort of walking up the street past us. And we were walking towards our car, turned off the sidewalk to go to the car, and I hear someone whisper, "Don't move." And I look back over my right shoulder, and I see one of the guys in front, which had a gun pointed at us, and the three other guys behind him were standing there. Everyone had a black hood on, so it was just like dark at night. I see shiny gun, and for some reason in your brain you think I would scream, I would run, I would cry. For some reason I was just like, Dustin, get in the car, they have a gun. So he turned around, we sprint to the car. I have to run around the car, so Dustin's closer to the shooters at this point, shooter, and I look back right before I sit down in the car, and there are two guns pointed at us. And so we're both hopping down into the car, and as we kind of sit down into the car, they start firing. And thank God all of them missed Dustin. One of the bullets out of the 8 shots that were fired went under his car, bounced back up, and caught me in the foot. And I didn't realize it until 2 or 3 minutes later when we were, getting out of there, calling 911, like, we've been shot at. I don't know where these guys went, but they kept going. We're out of there now. So when Dustin was on the phone with 911, we were obviously going down the street. There were street lights coming over, and I realized my hands were wet. I was like, what's going on? So I was crawling out of the passenger floorboard. My hands were wet. And when one of the street lights flashed over, I noticed they were all red. And so it was like, somewhere I've been shot, I guess. Adrenaline was pumping. I didn't feel it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any pain at that point. So they told us to, pull over in the McDonald's parking lot of all places. And the ambulance came and got me and took me to the hospital. And the bullet shattered my heel bone, missed my Achilles, thankfully, but they
God.
couldn't get the artery that it hit to stop bleeding. So I had to go into emergency surgery. It was
Mm.
about a year-long recovery, just trying to get the wound to actually close up. the exit hole closed up, but the entry hole took a long time to close up for sort of like a botched recovery or a botched surgery where they left a lot of bone wax in there. Long story short, my hole kept opening up and shooting the bone wax out and then trying to close again. So it was a little more lengthy than it needed to be.
Yeah.
But thank goodness that was all that happened to us. There were 8 shots fired. The next night, these people were apparently on a string of crimes of like robbery and, attempted murder. And the next night they did shoot another person, but that person knew who they were. So they were turned in. And I think one of the 4 was stopped. So it's a miracle that we're both still alive.
Thanks for listening to R.O.G. Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.